Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I'm going to be taking you through a deck with a commander that I believe is underrated and overpowered with what it can do. Yeah, this is a pretty crazy one. Let's jump into it. So we've got Orthion, Hero of Lavabrink. Yeah, this commander is pretty crazy. A 3/3 human soldier for 3 and a red. Pay 1 and a red, tap, create tokens, copy of another target creature control. It gains haste, sacrifice begin next end step. Activate as a sorcery. Now that's okay, but what's really spicy is this. Pay 6 red, red, red. Tap, create 5 tokens that are copies of another target creature control. They gain haste, sacrifice begin next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. Yeah, this is like random replication, like on a commander, essentially. Absolutely crazy. Being able to make 5 token copies, sure, they get sacrificed at the end step. They go away. Whatever. What we care about is, oh my goodness, the crazy things that you can do with just one activation of this. One activation of this can be game ending in many different ways. We've got plenty of cards that can just win the game, just game over as soon as we activate this one time. We also have ways to generate absurd amounts of value with it. We also have ways to do crazy combo things with it too. This commander has so much potential, and players out there are just like, yeah, it's pretty good, but okay, yeah, it's going to absolutely punch you in the face in a game of Commander if you are playing against the proper deck. I think I said that right. Well, I mean, I guess if you're playing, you're not really getting punched in the face. You're punching someone else in the face. Well, don't actually punch people in the face. Don't do that. But beat them with your commander deck in an overpowered way. Not an overpowered way. An underrated overpowered way. You know what I mean. Anyways, this is an incredibly budget-friendly deck. My goodness. The commander itself is $2.19. That is like almost over 1/8 of the price of the deck, and is a $15 deck, $15.86 scored in Moxfield. Keep in mind that doesn't include the cost of shipping or the cost of basics, but you might already have those mountains, or maybe your friend does, or maybe an LGS can give them to you, or maybe you can just buy them in bulk. Regardless, yeah, incredibly budget friendly. It usually doesn't get much cheaper than this when it comes to Commander. And my goodness, again, the potential that a deck like this has is just absolutely crazy. If you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. Now, with all that said, let's jump into the tactics. So let's start things off with tactic number 1, where I'm going to talk about the golden pig of the deck, just to illustrate the craziness that can happen with this commander. And that golden pig is the number 1 card for 99, and it is Coercive Recruiter, a 4/3 orc pirate for 4 and a red. Whenever it or another pirate enters the battlefield under control, gain control of target creature until end of turn, untap that creature until end of turn, it gains haste, becomes a pirate into other types. Okay, this is crazy because of a couple reasons. Number 1, this says whenever it enters the battlefield or another pirate. So if you're making copies of it, obviously those are pirates. Those are coming into play as well, and you get all their triggers and they all see each other. So all of a sudden you get an absurd amount of triggers. I don't even know the math. It's like 25 or something like that triggers, I assume. Something like that. Let me know in the comments below, math people out there who want to actually count this out. It's an absurd amount of untapped threat and triggers. And the best part of that threaten, which Wizards has been changing over the years and usually doesn't do, you can target your own creature with it. Again, it says untap that creature. Again, it says gain control of target creature until end of turn. It does not say an opponent controls, so it can be your own, including, of course, your commander. You can untap your commander, and if you've got the mana for it, which of course with all those untapped triggers, if you've got any kind of mana dorks, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, yeah, you could do this again and again and again, essentially an infinite number of times, you know, getting token copies of every single creature you control, all the creatures you control. You can gain control of all your opponent's creatures. You can just giant insurrection. I mean, just at a base level, this is just like an insurrection that just wins you the game, right? It doesn't even have to go through, you know, the iterations of untapping your commander and tapping again, okay? You can just basically gain control of all your opponent's creatures and win. That's all you need to do, essentially, with this. You really could just do that. But again, the potential for this is even more than just winning the game. It's doing crazy broken things. Yeah, it's a crazy good card. It is the golden pig, in my opinion. Definitely worthy of that title. Of course, Recruiter is a scary card with this commander. That's what we do. Tactic number 2, get over here. And one that is, well, not quite as good as our golden pig, but still very good. Dominating Vampire, a 3/3 vampire for 3 mana. Enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature, mana value less than or equal to the number of vampires you control until end of turn. Untap that creature, gains haste until end of turn. Yeah, again, this is one that Wizards, again, typically changes the text on and says, creature opponent controls. It does not say that. Again, it is creature, it can be you control it. I guess it doesn't say creature you control. It says target creature with mana value less than or equal number of vampires. Again, even if you have no other vampires in play, if you make 5 token copies of this, you are getting all 5 of those vampires in play. Then you've got, what, 6 vampires in play? Yeah, your commander meets that requirement. You can untap your commander. You can also gain control of other creatures as well, or you can just untap other juicy things that you might already have, again, that maybe leads to infinite craziness and gaining control, of course, everyone's boards as well. So this one has a lot of potential too. Next up, Zealous Conscripts. Even more crazy potential. Enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent until end of turn. Untap that permanent, it gains haste until end of turn. So this one actually pairs with some other things that you normally wouldn't be able to pair with, essentially. And all of a sudden, yeah, this comes into play. Of course, you can untap your commander. One of those copies can do so. It can also untap other permanents you control, maybe like some massive mana rocks that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yes, you've got even more combo potential with this. You've got even more potential to say, you know what, even if I just say gain control of the 5 best permanents on the board that my opponents have and utilize them against my opponents, that's really good as well. So again, a crazy good card. Again, any kind of effects that are like, hey, untap your commander with other potential are crazy good with this commander. Now let's move on to attack number 3, Pet Rocks. And first up, we've got Everflowing Chalice. Multi-kicker 2, enters the battlefield with that many charge counters on it, and taps for that much, essentially. Yeah, basically get half the amount of mana back that you put into it. If you put a ton of mana into this, the more it's going to pay off for you. I mean, again, if you've got your, well, Zealous Conscripts coming into play, you can untap this, and if it's got, say, 5 charge counters on it, that's a lot of mana that you can produce when this comes into play, and your crazy, crazy combo potential. Obviously, doesn't help pay for the red mana, but we got other ways to do that. Regardless, moving on, we got Palladium Mirror, a great mana dork for you. You can tap for 2 mana. Again, if you've got any of those creatures coming into play that can essentially threaten a creature, you can untap this and say, let's just utilize that mana again. Hedron Archive can tap for 2. We can also pay 2 and tap sacrifice to draw 2 cards. Sisay's Ring, we don't have that flexibility to sacrifice it, but still, again, taps for 2. Urgolem's Eye, exact same thing. Stone Speaker Crystal, exact same thing, except we can also pay 2, tap, sacrifice it, get rid of players' graveyards, which is lovely, again, against, Reanimator style decks, or, ones that really care about self-mill in their graveyard. It can really ruin their day. We also get to draw a card, which is lovely. Moving on, this one is massive. This one is huge. Elena Kessig Trapper, my goodness. First strike, tap add amount of red equal to the greatest power of creatures you control that enter the battlefield this turn. Yeah, let's just think about that plus Coercive Recruiter, plus our commander, or even Dominating Vampire, or even Zealous Conscripts. Any of those creatures essentially has, what, 3 or 4 power, so any of those comes into play. They can also untap this, again, with our commander's crazy fun times. Yeah, we're going to be tapping this for a lot of mana. We can essentially, of course, go infinite with this, again, in combination. Or again, if we just say, hey, just want a big turn where we just make a lot of mana, yeah, you can do that as well. Again, we've got other threat and effects too, and other big creatures that we can, generate a lot of mana with this with. Next up, Kozilek's Chandler. Again, kind of like a Palladium Mirror, it can tap for 2. Coveted Jewel. Oh my goodness. Enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, tap for 3 mana, any one color, and there's a little thing about it too. Whenever one of our creatures' opponent controls attack you or aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards, gain control of it, untap it. So we could lose this, that's okay. We can also just get it back too, or you can just wait for the turn that you're about to go off and do some crazy things again, like with a Zealous Conscript. You're like, okay, I play this. Cool, draw 3 cards. Cool, make 5 copies of my Zealous Conscripts. Cool, untap this. Tap it for an absurd amount of mana, also drawing a ton of cards as well if I make copies of it later. Yeah, you're not going to be doing that, but that's okay. You could dream. You know what? There's probably another version of this deck where you can make this into a creature, then, populate it. That's a different deck for a different day. I would love to do that, but regardless, that's not what we're doing here. What we are doing, again, that's fine. Hey, we'll just stick with infinite mana, infinite creatures, infinite everything else, okay? We don't need the infinite card draw with this. That's okay. And then finally, Dreamstone Hedron, another great mana rock to have in play. Tap for 3, pay 3, tap to sacrifice, draw 3 cards. Again, the potential to make a lot of mana with these is just pretty absurd. But now let's go to attack number 4, Classic Rock, because, yep, let's just take things down, okay? Earlier in the game, let's just take a step back. Early in the game, what do we need to do? Let's get some ramp out there quick and early. All right, Fellwire Stone, it can tap for usually our color if we need to. Depends on our opponent's lane situation. Next up, Fire Diamond, into the battlefield, tap, can tap for our color. Then we got Fractured Power Stone, doesn't tap for a red, but that's okay, can just tap for a colorless. It doesn't matter. We're in a single color deck, all right? Local Torque does the exact same thing, but we can also tap and make target null-land, permanent, and artifact in addition to other types. That can be absolutely massive, especially when it comes to removal. When you've got something that's like destroy an artifact, now you're like, destroy anything, essentially. Mind Stone, a great 1, tap for a colorless, pay 1, tap, sacrifice, draw a card. Prismatic Lens, this can help us filter our mana, which can come in handy with our commander's ability if you really need it. And then finally, Glittering Stockpile, one that you also might want to be able to untap. Tap for a red, get a stash counter on it. Also tap, sacrifice it, add X mana of any one color, X number of stash counters on it. So throughout the game, get more and more counters on this, and it can be a big, giant burst of juicy mana. Moving on to attack number 5. Speaking of which, yeah, this is called Mana Burst. Here we go. Charming Scoundrel, a 1/1 human rogue with haste. Enters the battlefield, choose one. All great options. Discard a card, draw a card, treasure token, or wicked roll attached to a creature control. Yeah, I mean, even just at a base level, just saying, oh, okay, cool, I'll make 5 copies of this and then make 5 treasure tokens. Yeah, that can be huge. Obviously, you can pick and choose kind of out of those. Again, if you're making 5 copies, you can pick and choose whatever you need. Most of the time, though, it's going to be like, yeah, I'd like to bank some mana for later. Thank you. Or, yeah, I mean, and again, some rummaging would be great as well, being able to dig down deeper in your deck. Next up, Reckless Barbarian. Speaking of banking mana, well, you can't really bank it for that long, but still, you sacrifice it at red. So again, basically, you can make copies and say, hey, you know what, let's just utilize them. Maybe utilize in combat, you know, sacrifice for mana, or just a good early creature to get out and essentially have a burst of mana for you to essentially get to that big turn quicker. Next up, Exhibition Magician. That's hard to say. 2 enters battlefield, choose one. You get a 1/1 citizen, so you can make some tokens if you want. Create treasure tokens. So again, another way to say, you know what, let's get some extra mana out and play. Moving on, Patron of the Arts. This one's huge for you. Enters battlefield or dies, create treasure token. So again, when you're making those tokens, there's a technical downside, right? If you got those 5 tokens, you got to sacrifice them at the end step. That's great with this because, hey, you get the 5 treasures when you get these tokens. You also get the 5 death triggers. Sorry, Patron of the Arts. And then you get, 5 more treasures. So you basically get 10 treasures out of the entire exchange. Next up, a huge one where you get a lot of mana right away. Priest of Urbresk. My goodness. Enters the battlefield, you add red to your mana pool. This has no requirement for a cast trigger on it, so there you go. To say, yep, yeah, I got 5 tokens of this. I get 15 mana. All of a sudden, giant mana burst. We've got ways to untap our commander outside of, the ones we already talked about. Or, yeah, just playing that Zolaport Cutthroat. I said Zolaport Cutthroat. Zealous Conscripts. Don't know why I do that, but Zealous Conscripts. Then untap, then do it again. You can do whatever you need to. Next up, Emrakul's Adger. Enters the battlefield, you get 3 Eldrazi spawns that you can sacrifice for mana each. So, yeah, again, another way to kind of save up all that mana. Or just have an Eldrazi spawn army. Super scary. Not really. Anyways, next up, Ganax Astral Hunter. This is another one where, hey, mathematicians out there, help me out, learn how much mana you actually get out of this. Whenever it or another dragon enters battlefield to control, you get a treasure token. Again, you got one of these in play. You make 5 copies of it. Yeah, they're going to get sacrificed ledger rule. That's okay. Every single one of them sees each other, and you make an absurd amount of mana. I think I read somewhere it's like 30 treasures. So yeah, you can make an absurd amount of treasures just by making 5 copies of this. That, yeah, don't stick around, but that's okay. Next up, easier math, Rapacious Dragon. Here we go. A 3 enters battlefield, you get 2 treasure tokens. Even I can do this math. You make 5 copies. Cool. I mean, outside the 2 that you just got from having it in play, let's not count those. Counting the 5 token copies that we're making of it, we get 10 treasure tokens, which is already a lot. A lovely amount of, again, mana to just store up and then utilize them in an even bigger turn. Now let's go to attack number 6, turn around. First up, we've got Wrangle. Gain control of target creature, power 4 less, still have turn. Untap against haste, still have turn. Again, keep in mind, with threat and effects like this one, does not say an opponent controls. Just any creature power 4 less, our commander has 3 power, so great. 2 mana, untap your commander and utilize its ability again. Yeah, thank you. Again, especially when you've got those giant bursts of mana that you can utilize. That, we just talked about essentially in the last tactic. Yeah, make sure that you have ways to untap your commander. Do it again. And then also do crazy things. And sure, if you want to, gain control of your opponent's creatures, do that. Especially ones that maybe have great ETBs. Gain control of their creature. Take that ETB and say, I'd love to have that ETB, and yes, I will. I will use my commander to get 5 copies of it. Lovely. Next up, Bloody Betrayal. Gain 12 target creature until end of turn. Untap against haste till turn. Also get a blood token. Sure, nice additional blood token on top of the threat and effect for some nice card selection there. Furnace Reigns. Untap target creature essentially. Gain haste, and also whenever it deals combat damage to a player, sure, get a treasure token. So basically just threaten with additional potential to get a treasure token if you really want one. Next up, you get an automatic treasure token with this one. Involuntary Employment, basically getting a threat and effect plus a treasure token for 4 mana. Lovely. Sealing Rivalry, this one helps out in a different way. Gain control of target artifact or creature of turn, untap, it gains haste. You get a Power Stone token, which can help you with activated abilities, including your commander's activated ability. Trader's Screed, this one gives us some mana back. Gain 12 creatures on turn, untap the creature, gains haste on turn, add 2 mana if it 1 color, so we basically get a little burst of mana for us, which is lovely. And then Mob Rule, this one can be absolutely massive. Choose one, gain control of all creatures power 4 greater than on turn, untap those creatures, gain haste on turn, or gain control of all small creatures power 3 or less. This one has won me a lot of games, just casting a 6 mana spell. In the right situation, just like, I gain control of basically all the creatures on the board that I want control of. Cool, swing with them and I win. At a base level, though, again, this is just choose that second mode, untap your commander, and probably a lot of other things on your team as well, and then utilize your commander again, and also gain control of your opponent's creatures that are small, too. So yeah, basically a very flexible, potentially win condition, but also just a way to keep things going. But now let's go into tech number 7, quick start, because we want things to start off, well, quickly. We've got Footfall Crater, Enchant Land. Enchant Land has tap, guitar creature gains trample and haste all out turn. This can be fantastic for your commander because, again, yeah, your commander might get dealt with. That's okay. If it's dealt with, you know what? We probably saved up a bunch of treasures that we made with our commander, you know, in combination making tokens of things or giant bursts of mana or whatnot. Cool. Get your commander out, and then all of a sudden, yeah, I want to activate that right away. I want that extra value right away. I want that craziness right away. I want that win right away. Do that with this. Next up, Crashing Drawbridge, a creature that can help us out. Tap, creature you control gain haste all turn. Lovely. Cool. And then we've got Rising of the Day, creature control of haste, and also Ledger, creature control +1/+0. So cool, our commander is slightly larger. What matters, though, again, is that haste. Being able to utilize our commander right away, and our mana works right away is quite lovely. But that's going to tactic number 8, keep it going. And actually, this one kind of works with both of our tactics that we just talked about. This one is going to be Bitter Reunion. Enchantment for 2 mana. Enters the battlefield, discard a card, draw 2 cards. So lovely rummaging there. Rummaging plus, you know, some card advantage, I guess. Pay 1, sacrifice it, creature control gain haste all out turn. So again, a nice way to say, you know what? Let's just utilize this burst of haste to really go crazy with our commander. Moving on, Humble Defector. I wish this worked in a slightly different way, but it's still incredibly powerful, this commander. Tap, draw 2 cards, target opponent gains 12 Humble Defector, activate on your turn. Yeah, so basically what we're going to be doing is, hey, okay, make 5 copies of this. Let's draw 10 cards. And what I wish would happen is that those creatures would be sacrificed, but they're not because they're changing control, I believe. Correct me in the comments below out there, rules layers out there, but I already checked my play group and they said, yeah, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to sacrifice them still. Yeah, I guess just be nice to an opponent and be like, hey, you over there, we're best friends now, okay? Let's just keep moving these Humble Defectors back and forth, all right? Do you want to draw 10 cards? I know you want to draw 10 cards. I do too. Okay, give them back. So I guess that's a good thing in that way where you just keep utilizing them. Moving on, Clockwork Fox. Another way where you're going to technically benefit your opponents, but you're going to benefit yourself the most. When it leaves the battlefield, you draw 2 cards and each opponent draws a card. Again, those token copies that you're making, you're not getting an ETB from them with this, but you do get that LTB because you have to sacrifice them. So you're going to be drawing 10 cards. Your opponents draw 5. That's fine. Then we've got Filigree Familiar, a way to not benefit your opponents. Enters battlefield, gain 2 life, so we're going to be gaining 10 life when we make 5 copies of this. When it dies, you draw a card. So again, you're going to draw 5 cards with that as well. Gate to the Afterlife, a way to benefit with our creatures. Again, we've got a ton of creatures in play. They're going to be dying. This deck has a lot of creatures. Unfortunately, we don't benefit from our non-token creatures dying. That's okay, though. We've got a lot of creatures out there that we're going to be utilizing. Whenever a non-token creature control dies, you gain 1 life, then you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So we're going to be gaining some life while also getting some extra card selection out of there as well. Moving on, Magus the Wheel. Pay 1 in a red, tap, sacrifice. Each player discards their hand and draw 7 cards. This is actually a good one that if you know we need to kind of have a wheel just around, we can just utilize our commander's initial ability, the first ability, to make 1 token copy of this and then pay for that to wheel. So we just have basically a repeatable wheel for us. I mean, I guess if you really want to make 5 copies of this and wheel and wheel and wheel again, sure you can, but yeah, I mean, go for it if you really want to. Next up, Sky Scanner. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. Very simple, very effective. Basically, draw 5 cards with our commander's ability. Then there's Card of the Betrayer. This one's quite funny. It attacks or blocks each combat fable. Whenever you lose control of it, draw 2 cards. If damage you dealt to it, prevent that damage opponent of your choice gains control of it. If we make 5 copies of this, we get to draw 10 cards because whenever we lose control of it, technically, if it dies, we lose control of it. So yeah, again, make 5 copies of it. It's legendary. They got to go away, and then we draw 10 cards. Again, this is another one where kind of like Humble Defector, where you can kind of like, hey, we're buddies, okay? All right. All right, you and me work with this Card Betrayer back and forth again and again and again. Thank you. Next up, Ruin Grinder. This one can be actually a pretty good card when it comes to, well, early in the game, mountain cycling away if you need that mountain, or hey, when it dies, each player will discard their hand and draw 7 cards, so it's a great way to reset things as well. And then finally, Null Spine Dragon. This one can be absolutely massive. Enters the battlefield, you may discard your hand, draw cards equal to damage dealt to target opponent this turn. I can't tell you, well, I can illustrate to you here in a little bit, all right, how much damage this deck can output. It's an absurd amount. It's an absolutely absurd amount. And yeah, you can make a token copy of this quite easily with your commander, and you might not want to make 5 copies of it because you might deck yourself. I mean, you might not. You might have ways to just, I mean, I guess if you just swung through with this, all right, dealt 7 damage, and then you're like, okay, I'll make 5 copies of it. Draw 35 cards. Lovely. Yeah, but also be careful with this one. Be careful. Moving on, though, let's move on to tack number 9, break stuff. And this can kind of actually illustrate, well, that damage output potentially in a little way. Pashlik Bonds. Whenever it or another goblin you control dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Yeah, you make 5 copies of this. That's a lot of triggers because they all see each other. They're all gobbos, and all of a sudden, they're dealing out a lot of damage. And yeah, you only get to keep 1, probably the main one, right? But still, that's okay. That's a lot of damage that you can dish out again to any target. So again, take out creatures, take out players' faces. That's a lot of damage. Next up, Plundering Barbarian enters the battlefield. Choose one, destroy target artifact, or create treasure token. So again, that flexibility to say, yeah, I'll destroy 5 artifacts, ha ha ha, or sure, I'll make 5 treasure tokens and just bank those for a later turn. Moving on, Tuck Scrapper, yet another way to say, you guys didn't want any of your artifacts, did ya? Hey, whenever another ally enters the battlefield to control, you may destroy a target artifact. If your artifacts are graded this way, Tuck Scrapper is going to deal damage to artifacts controller equal number of allies you control. This is brutal. This can be a game-ending play for you where you're just like, yeah, I destroy all your artifacts and also smack you in the face. Because, yeah, you're making 5 allies, right? When you're making copies of these, and you're going to be destroying pretty much every single artifact on the board except for your own. Because, again, it is a May. Thank goodness it's a May. So destroy all the artifacts that you don't control and punish your opponents a lot. There's Furbolg Flutus, yet another way to, well, take out everyone and everything. Enters the battlefield, gain control target creature you don't control until end of turn. Untap against haste and mirror until end of turn. Keep in mind, this threaten effect can unfortunately not threaten your own creature to untap it. That's okay though. What we can do again is basically gain control of when we, make a copy of this, or make 5 copies, I should say. Gain control of 5 creatures, the 5 best creatures on the board. Give them haste and myriad, so when they swing, they make even more copies. So again, make sure you're keeping track of ETBs. If you've got ETBs you're stealing, lovely. But also, yeah, just you're gonna send those creatures that you don't want to give back to your opponents into danger, essentially, and then get taken out as well. So a great removal spell, or a great win con too. Markov Enforcer. Whenever it or other vampire is battled for your control, Markov Enforcer fights up to 1 target creature opponent controls. This is just a board wipe on a body when you can make 5 copies of it, which is crazy. And on top of that, whenever a creature dealt damage by Markov Enforcer this turn dies, create a blood token. So you can just get an absurd amount of blood tokens to just save up for some card selection as well. Next up, Meteor Golem. Very simple, very effective. Enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent opponent controls. Yeah, make 5 copies. Destroy target non-land permanent. 5 times. Or not the same one, but 5 different ones. You know what I mean. But finally, let's move on to attack number 10, break the game. Because, yeah, we're just going to destroy our opponents with things like, well, Witty Roastmaster. Whenever it or another creature in his battlefield under control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Again, you make 5 copies of this. They all see each other. Goodbye, opponents. Moving on, Basalt Ravager, a bit more targeted. Hey, when it enters the battlefield, it does X damage to any target, X the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. That might be Giant or Wizard. Because, well, hey, you're making, 5 copies of this probably. And then all of a sudden, that's a lot of damage that you're dishing out. Moving on, perhaps just the easiest way to win, Fanatic of Mogus. Goodbye, everyone. Enters the battlefield, does damage to each opponent equal to your devotion to red. Yep, I mean, just at the very least, right? This plus your commander is what? I mean, your commander's, I think it's only got 1 red pip in it, if I'm remembering correctly. That would be, what, 7 pips essentially? So that's 7 damage per creature that you're making, so that's a lot. That's just a lot. And then you're going to have other red pips in play, of course. That's just a lot. Your opponents are gone if you essentially activate your commander and you target this. They're just gone, all right? Moving on, Rose Room Treasurer. This is going to help out in different ways. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a treasure token. This is the first second time this ability is rolled this turn. Otherwise, you can pay X. When you do, this can deal X damage to any target. So again, this can be a good kind of treasure generating engine for you, which can be absolutely lovely. And then, of course, on top of that, yeah, you're going to get triggers where it's like, oh yeah, this is the 3rd time or 4th time or 5th time a creature's come into play. Yeah, let's pay money into that X. Mana. There we go, into that X. It is kind of money when it's treasure, though. Just sacrifice all those treasures that you've been storing up. Priest of Urbas, Giant Trigger, whatever it is. Just dish out a lot of just fireball damage. Take out your opponents very easily. Moving on, Lightning Runner. You win. Congratulations, you win, essentially. Double Strike, haste 2/2. Whenever it attacks, you get 2 energy. Then you may pay, I believe that's like 8 energy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I believe it's 8. If you pay, untap all creatures you control after this phase, which is combat phase, you win. Because guess what? Again, it says all creatures you control. If you've got mana dorks that can tap for essentially your commander's second ability again, you do it again, and then again, and then again, and then again. And your opponents lose because you have infinite combats essentially with this, and infinite untaps and infinite everything. Your opponents lose because of energy. Lovely. Moving on, there's Warstorm Surge. Yeah, this is just a great card to have in play when all these shenanigans are going down. Whenever a creature is out from your control, deals damage equal to its power to any target. Yep, that's pretty crazy when you're making 5 copies of a creature every single time. And again, you can just dish out that damage to creatures, take out players' faces, whatever you need to do so. Spawnithraxes, speaking of taking out players' faces, oh my gosh, and creatures. Spawnithraxes, a 5/5 flying dragon, enters the battlefield, deals damage to target creature or player, your number of mountains you control. Yeah, the later the game goes, the more this hurts. And again, making 5 copies of it. Let's say you've got 8 lands. Yeah, or 8 lands. 8 mountains in play. Yeah, that's someone gone most likely, right? So there you go. Moving on. Stalking Vengeance. Finally, we've got a creature that says, hey, you know what? Warstorm Surge cares when you come into play. I care about when you leave play. It's a 5/5 with haste. Whenever a creature you control dies, deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. So again, that downside, technical downside of having to sacrifice those creatures on the turn is not a downside. Now it's an upside to say, oh, cool. Okay, I just made a bunch of 5/5s or whatever. Oh, they have to be sacrificed. Oh, that's what? 25 damage? Oh, and if I make 5 copies of this, they all see each other. Lots of damage. Lots of players gone. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy ways to take players out with this deck. But now this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to hear your thoughts on it. And yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think about it. I absolutely think this commander is just, well, pretty special. It can do some really crazy things. Again, it can beat you in a lot of different ways. It can beat you with value, can beat you with kind of crazy combo, can beat you with just an absurd amount of damage out of nowhere, essentially. And this commander is pretty crazy, in my opinion, pretty underrated. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on it. If you are interested in this commander, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. Again, it is so budget friendly. Again, according to Moxfield, $15.86. Yeah, make sure you're checking that deck list link out. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.